Howdy, my babies. Welcome back to Lodge. Yeah. Like I'm calling this a lodge, you know what I mean? But hey, I'm educating into the ways of masonry, so more or less, welcome. In this one here, I wanted to do. Sorry, I got an itch on my arm. You know? Okay, so I wanted to do this one on the Ashlars because I haven't done that yet. Go figure. And being that I'm doing basically like a Masonic dictionary or a glossary of terms and words and definitions, blah blah blah, right? I'm in the A section at this point, so it's gonna take a long time, dude. I hope you're prepared. It's gonna be like one of the longest running series on planet Earth. You know what I mean? I don't care. So the Ashlars. Now, typically when you think of an ashlar, you're going to look at it and see pictures online. If you Google a Freemason's ashlar, there's two of them. There's the rough ashlar and then the perfect ashlar. And here's what they mean and everything. Okay, so in a building a grand temple, which is also your mind, your body, you are a grand temple, not just actually going to a physical location called a grand temple, because we take what we learn, and we apply it to our, sorry, my arm itches, we apply it to ourselves as our own temple in our own minds. Now this here is just a giant chunk of rose quartz, and I'm looking at it as I'm like tilting it around, but I'm staring at my phone, right? Go figure. So this is basically what you would consider to be a rough ashlar. If you're going to Google it and look up, Masonic rough ashlar versus perfect ashlar, okay? So you have this, even though it's rose quartz, let's just say this is a regular unpolished stone, and that would be the rough ashlar. And then you would get like a perfect cube as far as a perfect ashlar. And if you take all the perfect little cubes, you can build this grand temple. Now, when it comes to your mind and the human body and so on, because we apply things that we learn to ourselves, we as humans, we are rough ashlars. And like I said, this one's here, like just giant chunk of rose quartz. I love my stones. And I don't know where I got that. I've had it for years. But as a rough ashlar, that means, aside from a rough stone that's, need to be chiseled out into a perfect cube so you can build a building with it, when it comes to our minds being called a rough ashlar, it's like you have your vices in life, which are like, say you drink bad sodas, and or you're into candy and junk food, or you're into drugs or drinking, or you're just a bad person, okay? However you want to put it, those are your little vices, those are your superfluities. And that is your teenage mentality versus your adult mindset of trying to be a better person. So you would then consider yourself to be a rough ashlar. You need to break off some of the superfluities and turn it into a nice stone, your mind, your body, and, ultimately become a better person. Now, to become a better person, you're striving to become a perfect ashlar. And it is typically stated that once you become a master mason, you are no longer a rough ashlar, but you are now a perfect ashlar. I don't think so. Honestly, I think we are all rough ashlars throughout our human form, and then when we grow up and grow old, and we die of old age, you know what I mean? Like, we go to heaven. That's where we become perfect Ashlars, because I consider the human form full of superfluities and, vices and everything, and yet when you're in heaven, so to speak, you're with God, however you want to call it or whatever, but you are no longer full of these crappy vices and everything, so you become, better. But in the human state, like, we don't wait until we get old and die and go to heaven to be called a perfect Ashlar. We like to think of ourselves as along our pathway in life, our Masonic journey, right? We like to think of it as though we're trying to become better people. So you started out before Masonry as a rough Ashlar. You're full of all your crap and your middle finger in the air and all of that, right? And then you work on yourself to become a Master Mason, and that's where you develop your mind into being a better person. Now, as a Mason, I will say that, we're trying to be better people. And it's not about being better than somebody else. Being a Mason means that you're trying to be better than you were yourself the day before. Because the day before, you may have, blown up at somebody and was all like, screw you, dude. And yet the next day, you're like, oh, I see where I made a mistake, and just pretend. Just be like, I see where, I could have handled this situation better. I see where I could have done better or something. So you're not trying to better yourself as far as, being better than anyone else. It is just a matter of trying to be better than you were the day before. And that's where you are breaking off those superfluities and vices in life to just try and be better than you were the day before. And that's what it means to be a Freemason. Because really, when you look at it, not everyone out there wants to be better than the day, before. They want to be better than you. And there's a big, big difference. Really, I would say that those of you out there that don't care about being better than you were the day before, you just want to be better than everyone else, well, that would be your state of being a rough Ashlar. And as you go on throughout your life, you kind of let all those things fall to the wayside, so to speak. And, you over time in life, go from being, a punk kid to being a good, upstanding citizen. You know what I mean? So in your life, you would go from being a rough Ashlar to a perfect Ashlar. Now, I don't have any actual Masonic stones of a rough Ashlar, perfect Ashlar example to show you, but Google it. Now, the whole thing, like I keep saying all along, is, look things up. So I'm going to teach you little things along the way, tons of them. But look them up, dude. Look everything up, Don't just take my word for it. Go find out for yourself, and don't listen to somebody else. Go find out for yourself. And when it comes to looking up pictures online of a rough Ashlar and a perfect Ashlar, you're not going to find an example of my giant hunk of rose quartz here as an example of a rough Ashlar with me sitting next to it. You're going to find examples of, and like some of the nicer pictures are like a rough stone with a little tiny spot carved out where you can see they're chiseling it into being a perfect stone, a square, cube, to build your temple. Like I said, that refers to your mind, not just in ancient days of doing an actual building. Because the whole thing with Masonry and applying it to ourselves, Like the trowel, like I had said before in the previous episode, and there's, more work that I will be doing in more episodes as far as the trowel goes. But a trowel isn't just necessarily to spread cement and, whatever, who cares? We apply them. We apply our tools. They're called working tools. And that, the trowel is one of the tools. And, we apply it to ourselves. And what does that mean for us, So like a trowel isn't just building a building and cement and everything. It's spreading the cement of brotherly love, friendship, and there you go, baby. Building bonds. So with your rough ashlar, it's taken all your, we'll just say, your teenager punk mind, like, I'm gonna do what I want, and you're a teenager, and yet years later you're like, yeah, that was dumb, dude, I shouldn't have done that. So over time, whether you become a Mason or not, you actually have a lot of things that are Masonically educated to you. You know what I mean? That, like, you don't have to be a Mason to understand what a rough ashlar and perfect ashlar is, and you don't have to be, like, a Mason to understand that you're striving to be a better person. Now, this rough ashlar, it's just a regular stone, rose quartz, whatever, but for the purpose of this video, I'm calling this a rough ashlar. And as I've said, we're all rough ashlars, we're all just trying to find our way and our path and be a better person and be better than we were the day before. If you're not a Mason and you don't really care about all this, you don't care to be a better person than you were yourself the day before, then you really would be considered a rough ashlar. And eventually along the way, you'll let go of some of your crappy attitudes and mindsets and vices and everything, and you'll just, whether you like it or not, you'll grow older as a better human being. Like, whereas you're in your teenage years, you don't care about helping the planet as much as somebody in their 90s wants to go and help and give back, So you don't have to be a Mason to understand some of the things that I'm teaching you, or as a lodge they're teaching you, you know what I mean? But a lot of the Masonic education can be applied to yourself, even if you don't ever want to become a Mason. Understand that you are all rough ashlars. You've got your problems in your life, and one day you didn't handle a situation properly, you blew up at your mom or whatever, because I blew up at my mom a bunch of times, and I don't call her my mom, I call her my mother. But I mean, later on down the road in life, I'd be like, oh, dude, I'm really sorry, like, please forgive me, that kind of a deal. And that would be becoming more of a perfect ashlar in life. So whether you're a Mason or you're not, whether you want to become one or you don't, understand that you are a rough ashlar. And the more you go through your life and your experiences, you let go of some of all the crap and, your attitudes and your middle finger in the air attitude, and you become a perfect ashlar of wanting to be a better person. So I think the rough ashlar, and I'm using this, like I said, my giant rock of rose quartz is a perfect example, because this isn't rough. I mean, this isn't perfect, like, I can take a whole bunch of these, and am I going to build a perfect building with no cement? No. It would all crumble down and fall out and, down around me. But yet, if I chisel away all the crap and I make each of these sides into a perfect little cube, I can build a glorious temple, physically or mentally. So, being that we are free and accepted Masons, and We are no longer using the tools and the education to just build buildings. We are now building ourselves and our minds as temples. And I hope you enjoyed this video. There's a ton of them. I may not be the best to deliver this education to you, but I'm doing it. And I'm trying to do it in a cut and dry fashion, because that's the way I grew up in New York, you know what I mean? But at the same time, like, I don't want to fill you full of lies, and I don't want to fill you full of crap. You want to know what's going on? You want to learn? Well, learn, dude. So, think of yourself as a rough ashlar. What kind of superfluities, superfluous thoughts and patterns and your vices, be it like you fill yourself full of crappy food, or processed food, or like drugs and alcohol, whatever, or you've just got a really poor attitude, negative attitude in life. Think of yourself as a rough ashlar, and every day pick up your own little stone like this. Whether it's rose quartz or, just a rock you find out in the yard, dude. Pick one up and carry it with you. Have it sit next to your bed, so you can see it every day. And think of yourself as that rough ashlar. And how can you chisel away this day that you've just awakened to? How can you chisel away some of the crap so that you can ultimately build your own self into a better person? I think the rough ashlar, on top of all the Masonic tools, you know what I mean, and all the education, we can all apply the wisdom of Freemasonry to ourselves in our own lives to become better people. And that's the whole point of Freemasonry, because you come to Freemasonry and you learn that you've always had it in your heart. You've always been a good person, and like, you were a Mason long before you ever became one, and you just want to do good in life and help people. And so you're taking all of the, the outside crap or influences and just having a bad day kind of moments, and letting it all go, and just trying to be a better person. So I keep this one right next to my bed. And I see it every day. I'm just trying to be better than I was the day before. Now, I might not be the best example of a Freemason that the world has ever seen, but I am a Freemason, and a pretty good definition of a Freemason. Because while I've gone through all my crap, and especially with my New York mentality and, all of that, I'm just trying to be better than I was the day before. Trying to break away all the superfluities and the vices and everything, and just being better than I was the day before. I don't need to be better than anyone else. So one day, maybe, if I'm lucky, I'll find that I'm a perfect ashlar. But up until that point, this little piece right here is a very good symbol for me. What can I do today to chisel away all the crap that I had to put out the day before? Let's just say I had a bad attitude yesterday, and, well, I could handle things better today, couldn't I? I don't care about somebody else, and, oh, let me be better than you, and what can I do to make you look like crap to me, and my life is so fabulous and everything. That's not a Mason. That's not a good example of a rough and perfect ashlar. That's a really good example of a rough ashlar, period. You know what I mean? Like, you got a long way to go to be a better person. Think about it. Because everyone else is. But don't worry about what other people think. Don't worry about what other people say. You go out in your yard, or if you have a nice stone, whatever, you know. Like, I even have moldavite and quartz on me, you know, like right around my neck. Like, this is just a regular piece of quartz crystal, nice chunk. And then this is, you know, I've got other things too, right? And then, like, this is moldavite and everything. And they're rough. Well, they could also be considered rough ashlars and giving me a constant reminder when I look down that they're not perfect, neither am I. But if I try to be better than I was the day before, that's what matters and that's what counts. And if I keep in that mind frame of trying to be better than I was the day before, eventually this little rough ashlar will end up becoming a perfect ashlar. And I will be the better person. And I will be the change that I wish to see in the world. Namaste, my babies. I love you. Call your local lodge, attend a stated meeting, take all of your questions, even a whole notebook, because we're all right there for you. I love you. Bye.